Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Tonight, I'd like to start with a program on the current news. There's been a rally, the ZANU-PF rally in Zaka, Masvingo. And to help me analyze and talk about it is Jonathan. Jonathan, do you want to introduce yourself and make your comment?
Good morning, good evening. It's a pleasure to join you, sir, to just analyze the current political and election fever which is in Zimbabwe at the moment. Thank you.
So, what do you think of this crowd in Masvingo, ZANU-PF rally?
Yeah, basically, I was talking to some of my colleagues. They're saying, okay, for now, they're busing in, they're using more than 400 or so buses, but I don't know how factful it is. Maybe you can also enlighten us because the public transport also obviously has been affected if all buses are now being used to busing those people to different locations for campaigns.
Yeah, I think that the unfortunate reality here is we are now into this season of the competition on the size of your crowd, and in this particular one, I would say ZANU-PF is going to win it because they've got really deep pockets and they can afford to drive people around from one place to another. I'm not denying it at all. In fact, I can show you in the next picture there the number of buses that were used, or a picture of some of the buses that were used queuing up to go in. So on that point, this was a rat race that Chamisa should have known he's getting himself involved in.
Yes, but is it maybe now too late to call for boycott? If, especially now that they're saying that the voters' roll is also not, they can't analyze the voters' roll, they can't do anything about the voters' roll. So the only thing they can only do now is just to go in into the elections, hoping that a miracle will happen.
Well, I think this is the unfortunate reality that we are now trying to count on miracles. We should surely have known this, seen this coming, Jonathan. I mean, surely are we serious about expecting a miracle here?
Yeah, but what else can we do? Because at the moment it's now too late to boycott, even though they knew that the voters roll or they didn't even implement any reforms. So the only way out is maybe just to go through the elections and obviously to legitimize the regime to continue another 5 years.
This is just a photograph of the buses that ferried some of the ZANU-PF uh, rally attendees. And somebody posed a question there, quiz time. Which president moves around with the same supporters addressing them in different parts of the country? Yeah. But
But
it's nice to be humorous, but to be quite honest, this is exactly what is happening. I mean, we knew ZANU-PF in terms of funding, they can afford to hire these people, this crowd, and ferry them from one place to another. But what is also interesting here is, at the end of the day, the regime can afford to bus the same people around to to vote on voting day, and that is probably the most critical part. And these people are, if you want, this is all a rehearsal, preparation for voting day. And at the end of the day, a landslide victory for ZANU-PF. And I agree with you, the idea that people can boycott these elections, or Triple C can boycott the elections. That's all too late now. You're not going to have people boycotting the elections now. It's too late.
Yes, it's too late. But I think also maybe this is just a smoke screen, because like one Russian leader once said, it's not about the number of people who vote, it's actually the counting of the votes. So the region is beyond, it's somewhere. Not the numbers will just say that maybe there is some support of some sort, but at the end of the day, the region is actually in the manipulations of the number of votes at the end of the day. It's not about the people who actually go and vote in those polling stations. So I think this one is just like a smoke screen campaign to just cover the eyes of the people that they've got the support.
Yeah, I'd like to welcome a guest who has just joined us. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Godfrey. I'm just, I'm Flyers there. That's my code name. But yeah, just interesting to listen to what you guys are talking about.
Thank you, Godfrey. And we have just been joined by Ben as well, Benjamin. What we're talking about here, just for those who have just joined us, we're talking about the ZANU-PF rally in Zaka today. And the crowd that was there is quite impressive. And some of them were ferried in by buses, and you can see the photographs of the buses queuing in. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself? And
thank you very much. Sorry, I was a bit delayed. I'd also like to greet our viewers. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for having us.
do you have anything you want to say about the crowd, the crowd rat race that we are in now?
We all know that ZANU-PF, their stronghold is the rural areas, because they have the support from the chiefs, and people are actually intimidated, and they are actually sometimes forced to go to these rallies, because there's always a catch to it. See, you risk losing your lands, your rural communal lands, or you risk losing foodstuffs or aid from government, things like that. So yeah, you would expect such a crowd from rural areas, I should say. And obviously some are also just burst from as all around the country, and brought to these rallies. So it shouldn't be much of a surprise.
Well, in this particular case, the other thing we've got to remember here is that these people, well, when Chamisa agreed to this rat race, this is what it was all about. Let's see who can pull the biggest crowd. And in this particular case, those with the deepest pockets are invariably going to win this rat race because they have got the money. And in this particular case, Chamisa was warned that you can't win a rat race with ZANU-PF given the regime's vast resources. It doesn't matter. In this particular case, we all know, yes, they are passing these people around. But, that is what we expected. And at the end of the day, what matters here is that this is all rehearsals for election day. The same crowd, the same people who have been passing them around will be employed on the election day to pass the same people around from one polling station to another, and thus deliver a ZANU-PF landslide victory. That's why it is a rat race. Jonathan was talking earlier on about it is too late to boycott the elections, and I totally agree with him. I don't know whether, Jonathan, you would want to expand on that one for the benefit of those who just joined us.
Yeah, of course, like now we're hearing that the voters roll, they can't analyze it in PDF, and they can't verify or check. Some people have checked their names, their old polling stations, but it's appearing somewhere. And so the political parties can't really, but ZANU-PF is happy with it. So at the end of the day, now if they want to say, no, the playing level is not okay when they didn't implement the reforms in the first place, then it's pointless even to start thinking of boycotting the elections now. So I think it's too late. The only thing is just to hope for miracles. Like I said, hopefully when the elections are done.
Anyone wants to comment on that one?
Let me try. I don't think it's ever too late. I mean, it's every day there's a new saga that is coming into play. Things are changing. Every situation that is coming up, it's even harder for any opposition to think that they can ever win. So if they were to actually say enough is enough, this is just gone beyond, I think, everything will just fall into place, and people will just see, whoever needs to see will see that, these guys have actually gone above and beyond to make it virtually impossible for any other, candidate to win. So even continuing to think of continuing right now is just clear madness. It's impossible for anybody to actually think that they can win. No matter how many strategies you have, you can never counter the fortification that has been done by ZANU-PF. It's impossible.
My comment on that one is, if you look at the ZANU, the Triple C rally, because Chamisa was holding his own rally in Gweru, you listen to it and to the supporters, they are as confident as ever that they're going to win. This is the trap we are caught up in. They firmly believe that, yes, some of them believe these elections are free, fair, and credible. Even those who do not believe that the elections are free, fair, and credible, they still believe that Chamisa has got winning in rigged election strategies that will deliver victory. So this is the reality. When the opposition itself firmly believe they can still win these rigged elections, your call, Jonathan, your suggestion that they should boycott it will fall on deaf ears. That is the trap we are caught in. I don't know, Godfrey, do you want to say something?
Well, not really. But I would like to say I'm not. I don't think it's a very wise idea for people at this juncture to boycott this election, because then that way we simply handing over power to ZANU-PF. At least if we go into elections, we know we're going to have controversies and eventually they're going to grab the power anyway. But at least there's something on record to show that, you see, 2008 they rigged. 2018 they rigged, and now they're rigging again. I mean, sometime in the future things will have to change. There's no dictator that lives forever for life, but non-action, I mean, will be detrimental to our downfall is to every citizen. So I think we better be we better be seen to be doing something. I know it's very difficult, and it would look foolhardy for Triple C to participate in these elections and be deluded enough to think that they're gonna win it. I mean, we're facing somebody who's been in power for so long and who has tightened all the grips and screws of rigging. And it's so unfortunate that we are where we are. But surely we got to do something about it. I mean, we cannot not just sit on our laurels and do nothing about it. And we shouldn't ever expect anybody from outside us, because the biggest problem we have, I think, is to think that there's going to be a saint who's going to come and rescue us. It takes you and I to rescue ourselves. So we better be, while we make our mistakes, let's keep on making those mistakes until we get things right.
If I may say, let's look back, the rerun for that happened in 2008 when MDC boycotted the rerun. Right. We can't say every time, look, every time we've been participating, and we have been having the same results. We cry the day after and nobody listens, because obviously we would have claimed that, you know, we are going to win big, we've got strategies in place and all that, right? And then we fall short of the mark. But when we did things differently, when MDC did things differently, let me say, we had the result. So why are we going back to default settings where we have to go back and participate, when we know that, you know, if we do not participate, we boycott, and we show the evidence, and the evidence, I am sure, is just it's overwhelming. I'm sure you know, SADC will listen to us just the same way they did. So I think participating is just it's a hopeless situation. If we are going to say, let us go and participate and lose, why go in the first place? I don't even understand. It's the same thing as not going.
Jonathan, do you want to say something?
No, I think
preempted what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Well, my comment on participating actually is that we have got to go back further than just participating. We've got to go back to the GNU itself. During the GNU, I think this is one of the things that most Zimbabweans have failed to appreciate. During the GNU, the primary task was to implement the democratic reforms, which would have stopped ZANU-PF rigging the elections. The truth of the matter is, MDC failed to implement even one meaningful democratic change during that period. And so we cannot deny that they lost the plot there. And right now, even if SADC was to step in again, because remember, it was SADC that was behind the GNU of 2008 to 2013, and say, okay, let's have another GNU. If you were SADC, would you have the confidence that this same ZANU-PF, same Triple C will implement any reforms? I think you'll have to be really naive to believe it, because they are the same characters who failed to implement even one meaningful reform during the GNU of 2008 to 2013. Why should you believe they'll do so now? So that is the problem we have here, gentlemen.
I would agree with you, but then at the same token, let us look at the problem that Zimbabwe is giving to other SADC countries. We are we are all over them. We are abusing their facilities, whether it be hospitals, whether it be their employment levels, their economies. Zimbabwe is just in the mix of just it's chaos all over Southern Africa just because of Zimbabwe. So I think they themselves, when they look at it in terms of their stability as an organization, as individual countries, they need something to give in Zimbabwe. And I am sure if the problems would outweigh the gains of continuing to have the same characters running the show, which is ZANU-PF. I'm sure they will understand. I am sure they will understand. But then they will also have to tighten, the screws and knock on people's heads to say, this time around, please do not forget what your mandate is. And as a country, as individuals, if they forget, we should keep on pushing for them to also implement the reforms.
Yes. Anyone else want to say something there, or we can move on to the next topic? Okay, we can always come back on it on the summary. The next topic I was going to suggest is, I think most of you have been reading about Tyson and his presidential candidate and his bid. And at the present moment, he's still possibly in the running. We don't know yet. He has made an appeal for his. But the issue I was going to focus on is what Mazembe said at this interview he gave when he was talking of he has been in touch with Chamisa, and they spoke for 3 hours. And there is a generational consensus. I don't know whether gentlemen would like to comment what you understand by this generational consensus. Shall we start with you, Jonathan? Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
Sorry, I'm having connectivity issues due to load shedding. If you can just continue. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Okay, do you want to go ahead, Godfrey? What do you understand by this generational consensus?
I think, well, I don't know what it means really, but it's obviously, I think this is just political wish-wash from Zambia, I think. These are the same guys that were in ZANU-PF yesterday, inflicting pain on every Zimbabwean. And then come a day later, they want to turn back as if they are saints. So whatever he's saying, what generational consensus, he probably means that, this old guard, Mnangagwa and them, they're pretty old, and him and Chamisa, they're almost the same age. So, they should be that there is that agreement, that we agree because of our age, and we really know what's happening currently. We are up to date with current events, and we would work together well. So I think it's just there are people that are just trying to claw back into the political game. Mind you, they've been on the sideline for so long, and so and they're finding it really difficult to break through at the moment. We don't know, like you rightly said, we don't know what's going to happen to Kasukuwere's case at the moment. ZANU-PF is not really amused by his participation, obviously. And every Zimbabwean, we should actually take that with a pinch of salt, because we don't know what it's coming for, really, what this agenda is. So yeah, so whatever generational consensus means, I mean, I think it's just political wishwash as far as I'm concerned. These are people that are desperate, people that have been sidelined, and people now that want to come back, and they want to use the same system that they created to demonize it now, so that they can claw back into the fold.
Benjamin?
Well, I believe, from Kasukuwere's side, it's obviously he's looking for for the easiest route to come back into the political arena, and obviously it's someone who can tolerate you and who's got the same mind as what you want as well, right? To say, okay, if we do this together, probably we can get to beat these guys. So, not knowing what exactly they discussed, but I am pretty sure it's along those elements to say, I have some of my compatriots that are still within ZANU PF, and I command quite, I mean, let's not forget this is G40. So I'm sure there's G40 still in ZANU PF, and obviously there's disgruntlement within ZANU PF as a party itself. So Kasukuwere will obviously be promising that day to Chamisa. And when it comes to generational consensus, it's young blood. They will be talking, hey, we are young blood, let's get rid of this old god, like what Godfrey has just said. And that's the story. But then we all know what Kasukuwere is all about, what he did to people. And I don't think all of a sudden just going to South Africa and hiding for a bit he comes back a saint. I do not buy it. I really don't buy it. I just think he's still the same character, trying to worm himself, find a breakthrough. If he comes through using Chamisa, I don't know what he's going to do, but I'm pretty sure somebody is going to cry between the two at the end of the day. So that consensus is very, 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 it's slippery, if I may say.
Welcome to Jonathan. I don't know, is your line any better, Jonathan?
Yeah, yes, it's now better. And I'm still just following it up. We can just continue. It's fine. I can.
Okay, I don't know whether you want to say something about this generational consensus.
Yeah, I think Tyson is just trying to buy in because I think he believes they've got an upper hand within to cause problems within ZANU-PF to split the vote. But his track record is also not that good. So at the moment, I don't know where, maybe if he's just banking on those die-hard ZANU-PF supporters who would rather vote for him instead of voting for CCC. So I think it's just gambling to try to distort. Maybe that's why people are saying ED is now panicking, because he's trying to split the ZANU-PF vote, not really playing into CC's, but just to cause commotion within the ZANU-PF camp.
I totally agree with that. I think what worries me here is that how Chamisa and his MDC, Triple C friends have always sought to get into power. This has nothing to do with a generational consensus. When they were in the GNU, they failed to implement a single democratic reform. It wasn't a generational consensus with Mugabe that we can be certain of. It was a question of we are in power and we are now getting the benefits, and that's what we care about. Interestingly enough, when the coup happened, the 2017 military coup happened, the same MDC guys sided with Mnangagwa and company. Changirai left his hospital bed in South Africa in a half when the coup happened, because he was promised by Msangwa that they were going to form a new GNU. And they supported the coup straight away. And then when they were betrayed, they started condemning the coup. So this is just, again, another example of how Triple C, in their search to get back into power, they're willing to go to bed with anybody. And there is the tragedy of Africa. The likes of Kasukuwere is a known thug. You know, here is somebody who has not only instructed ZANU-PF thugs to go and attack MDC supporters, but he was himself involved. There are stories of him passing around some of his thugs in 2008, for instance, during the runoff. And many of them were killed from his own home area. And some of them were well known to people like Chamisa. But now, when the opportunity to join forces with him to get back into power comes, they have a generational consensus. This is simply amazing. And if we think that if Chamisa was to get into power, he will implement even some of the token reforms to make sure elections are free, fair, and credible, we can forget it. Because once people like Kasukuwere gets in, even if they don't form a partnership straight away, the fact that they are talking, this is a gentleman's understanding between the two of them. Of course, he will be expecting some favors back. And if he was to get back into power, he's not going to, like Godfrey was saying, that he's not going to ask to dismantle the system that he helped create. He'll be only looking at how to take advantage of it. So this is the tragic reality of Zimbabwe politics. We are trusting Chamisa too much, in my view. Gentlemen, do you want to come in with your summary of the two issues we have discussed tonight? Can we start with you, Godfrey?
Yeah, well, the first one, I think, I'm not sure how best I could summarize it, but well, my personal opinion is we should just go for the elections. We cannot boycott elections now, and we should just go for it. I mean, we know obviously the results are foregone, but we just have to face the consequences. And then we see how, who knows? I mean, maybe it's going to be like another Zambia, you know. We don't know. I mean, Lungu was so confident he was going to win. And before he knew it, he's now a pedestrian like all of us. So you never know. And then obviously for the second issue, this, like everybody has agreed, we can never trust the G40. They've got a very big hidden agenda, which is very public anyway. I mean, it's at everybody's disposal. Everybody knows them. Everybody knows what they've done, how much pain they've inflicted on the normal Zimbabwean person. And now they want to come back. And I mean, it's very suspicious, really. And I wouldn't really trust them back into the fold. I mean, if we do, it's to our own detriment. So yeah, I mean, That's all I can say. I won't trust whatever that generational consensus is. I think it's nothing but just he's just playing around with words, really. I mean, how long does it take to discuss about your age and that these madalas, their time is up now. We should get into the fold. And like Wilbert said, I think they obviously would want something back. They would want a kickback of some sort, regardless what sort of arrangement there is between them and Chamisa. So yeah, I mean, I think any normal being wouldn't trust to go into partnership with those kind of people.
Ben, do you want to say your final word?
Oh, thank you. I would just say, let us stop doing some things that are just so obvious. I mean, participating in rigged elections is not going to give us any meaningful change. Nothing at all. We've been doing this for 43 years. I'm sure, we should get tired at some point and actually look at ourselves in the mirror and, question ourselves, why are we doing this in the first place? Because I think we are just hurting ourselves, because at the next day after elections, we know the result and how it will come out, and the agony and the pain is just too much. I don't know how. We are very tolerant. Zimbabweans are very tolerant people, and I think sometimes we just need to just stop our foolishness or our madness, if I may say, and just do things differently. There is no such thing as it's too late to boycott. You can, even if you're on your way to the shops and you decide, I don't want to go to the shops anymore, you just turn back and you go back. Nobody's going to ask you. It's not impossible. Let us not do this to ourselves anymore. That's all I can say. As for Kasukuwere and Co, once a snake is always a snake. Even if you try and do whatever, it's a snake. Just be careful.
Jonathan?
Yeah, like I've said anyway, it might not be too late to boycott, but with the way the CC leadership, Super C leadership is going on, they are geared for the election, whether the floor is not level or it's not free and fair. They still want to participate. Obviously, they just want to get those cases. But my other colleague said, maybe we just have to expect a miracle like what happened in Zambia. At the end of the day, because we all know that ZANU-PF cannot reform itself out of power. So it will still kick on until, I don't know. So for now, if these guys are going on with the campaign, even if they know that the voters' roll is in shambles, it means they are geared still to participate in the flow elections. So at the end of the day, it's just maybe to keep on trying and still expect another 5 years of suffering. Thank you.
Well, my personal opinion on whether or not to boycott, I honestly think where we are now is a situation where we can honestly say we are participating in these elections, knowing fully well that they're being rigged. But also, secondly, knowing fully well that by participating, we are giving legitimacy to the process. Because you cannot, and this is something I think most people are failing to understand and appreciate, you cannot participate and then turn around and say, oh, the elections were rigged. No, you were told, you were warned that these elections are flawed and you should not participate without reforms. And not only that, in the case of Zimbabwe, we had the opportunity to implement those reforms, and MDC failed to implement even one meaningful reform. And even now, as we are talking right now, MDC and their supporters are adamant that they are going to win these elections. What do you expect anybody else to do? I think between the four of us here, we can decide, oh, we'll boycott them. But as long as the opposition participate in their full numbers, Mnangagwa will always turn around and say, if these elections were rigged, why did so many people participate? So we have got to make that point. But nonetheless, at least those of us who are saying, no, you should not participate, and have consistently said so, we can turn around on the 24th of August and say, we told you so. If you participate, you cannot complain on the 24th of August and say the elections were rigged. I think that message must be understood. And this is what has undermined the voice of those who are calling for reforms. Because people have had one foot in and one foot out. You know, those who, after convincing them that the elections are going to be rigged, they still thought, well, maybe we could still win. If that's your belief, if you participate, then you cannot complain afterwards. I think this comes comparable to the famous saying about buyer beware. You know, it's for you, the buyer, to make sure that you examine the goods before you pay for them. You have the opportunity to do so. And it's the classical example of that is someone buying a horse. You know, the seller may tell you, oh, it's 5 years old, whereas in reality it's maybe 12 years old. But it's for you as a buyer to have to stop and have a look. You know, if you pay for it, take it home, and then you find the horse is nearly toothless. You cannot blame the seller. It's your fault. You should have taken time to examine the goods before you paid for them. That is what that principle, maxim, is based on. Buyer beware, voter beware. In this particular case, if you know the process is so flawed, you cannot change the result, and participating will only give legitimacy to the process, then the most logical thing to do is not to participate at all. And as for the generation consensus, like I said, I think this is just the Chamisa showing once again that he will do anything to get into power. You will have another marriage of convenience just to get back into power. And he doesn't care about the price the nation will have to pay. Getting into an arrangement with another faction of ZANU-PF to perpetuate the principle of the ZANU-PF dictatorship is not going to help the country at all. And this is the lack of principle that was behind their failure to implement even one meaningful democratic reform. Thanks very much again, gentlemen, for joining, and the listeners, thank you very much for listening. And want to say good night to the listeners, gentlemen.
Thank you all. Thank you all, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And we are hoping we'll have these programs every 7 o'clock in the evening. So those the listeners out there who are available, you're welcome to join us. Thank you again, gentlemen, for joining tonight, and good day.